Hello and namaste. Thank you so much for joining me in this practice today. Today's practice by request will be focused on sciatica pain and treating that. So that's what we'll be looking at today. If you want to incorporate a mantra into this practice, you could incorporate something like, I have the tools to heal and protect my body. When you're ready, we'll get started in the middle of your mat in a comfortable seated position, either seated forward fold with the knees bent or just a cross-legged seat. And feel free to bring any bolsters, pillows, or props that you might want to incorporate. There will be limited opportunity to use those, but pillows are always welcome. Let's get started. We are stretching for sciatica, so we are going to get started in a comfortable seated forward fold with legs out in front and a generous bend in the knees today. We're going to use this position to drop in, but just as a preface for today's class, sciatica pain is super common. It happens when the sciatic nerve is compressed, either through the low back, disc compression, or somewhere in the hip. So when we are targeting sciatic pain or trying to prevent sciatic pain, we're looking for flexibility, mobility in the hips. That typically is indicative of a tight piriformis, which is a small but very important muscle in the hips, tightness in the hamstrings, or some low back issue. So generally speaking, when you have low back issues of any kind, it's often related to the hips and the hamstrings. So you're typically going to work all of those muscles when you have those issues. So we're going to do a lot of poses today that are very familiar and practical. And if you incorporate these into your practice regularly, you can hopefully prevent sciatic pain. So we'll start in that seated forward fold, knees bent, feet nice and wide, like shoulder width apart, standing up nice and tall, chest toward the ceiling, and then just folding forward like usual. Relax the head and neck, maybe bring your arms behind the knees or just open up the palms on the mat, whatever feels right. And for folks who do suffer from low back pain, typically this pose is really calming and kind of soothing. So let's just take some time here just to settle in. Notice how we're feeling in our bodies today. Also how we're feeling in the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual bodies. Just checking in to observe where you're at today. As you start to observe, take this time just to turn inward. Start to really focus on being present in your body. And right away, we're trying to quiet the mind. Notice the breath. And when you do sync up with your breath, slowly start to deepen it. Today we're going to imagine breathing all the way into the hips. Don't forget to remind your body it's okay to relax. This is your practice, you're in charge. And if at any point you find a really juicy pose that you love or you get relief from, feel free to stay in that pose or explore in that pose. Remember that my verbal cues are just suggestive. If you are having sciatic pain, just move slowly today. Remember to give yourself that space and that grace. I'm not going to force the body into any shapes, just working together with the body.
If you want to incorporate a mantra into today's practice, it might be something along the lines of, I have the tools to protect and heal my own body. Or I have the ability to protect and heal my own body. Sciatica and other conditions, like I said, are super common. A lot of us, when in that position, have no idea where to start. But the truth is, with a simple understanding of anatomy and some knowledge of these poses, you can remedy sciatica pain and a lot of other issues at home. That's why we call it movement medicine. When you're able to quiet the mind, connect with the breath, and you feel really grounded and centered, that's when we'll open the eyes if they're closed, release the hands if they're clasped. Bring your awareness to the sits bones and slowly curl up to sitting. Getting nice and long through the spine always. We're always trying to decompress that spine. Natural compression happens from gravity, and over time, if we don't remedy that, it can lead to other issues like sciatica. All right, so once you're in your tall seated posture, chest nice and open, chin up, we're gonna start by let's send the left leg out long and bring that right knee in toward the chest. So you're really pulling it in tight, getting comfortable here, not using the leg to support the spine, but just getting nice and tall. And then from here, we're gonna bring that right heel to the outside of the left thigh. Keep those left toes pointed up toward the ceiling. You can use both hands to pull that shin in tight to your chest if you want to. And then we'll hook that left elbow around that right knee, pull it in tight, get cozy, and then swing that right arm around behind you. Plant the fingertips or the palm, pull that right shoulder back, lift your gaze, sit up tall, maybe look over that right shoulder if you're able. So we're gonna add another variation on here, which we have done in the past, just to get you a little deeper into that lower back stretch. So from here, once you feel nice and stable with that right palm planted, we'll raise the left hand up toward the ceiling, and then bring that left elbow to the outside of the right knee to kind of give you a little leverage, to twist a little further toward the right. So you're not forcing it here, just noticing what you feel in the low back, trying to connect with that. Finding your breath. And when you're ready, bringing it back through center to do the same thing on the other side. So you can bring your hands back to the shins, slowly unravel. Right leg goes out long. Remember protecting that posture throughout. Bend into that left knee. Hug that left knee in toward the chest. When you feel stable, bring that left heel to the outside of the right thigh. Same thing here. Right elbow hooks around that left knee, really pulling it in toward the body. And you may start to feel a stretch already here in the outer hip, which is also important for getting into that piriformis. Anyway, from here, you'll swing that left hand behind you. Same thing, plant the fingertips and then maybe the palm. Lifting, twisting, maybe looking over that left shoulder. Getting deep into that hip and low back. And if you're ready, you can bring that right arm up toward the ceiling and then bring that right elbow to the outside of the left knee, just for a little deeper twist. Really pulling that left shoulder back. Maybe incorporating the cervical spine, but mostly just staying present in the low back and hips. Don't forget to breathe. And we'll bring it back through center when you're ready. So from here, we're going to go into some side body stretches. I'm going to turn to face you, but you can stay where you are if you want to. So we'll come into that cross-legged seat here, and if you need to, you can sit on a pillow or a block if it makes it more comfortable for you. So before anything, we get nice and long through the spine, rolling the shoulders back, opening up through the chest, lifting the chin. And then we're going to get into the side body by bringing that right palm to the mat, maybe sliding those right fingers away, coming onto the right forearm. So just in this transition, we want to make sure we do that slowly and intentionally. So left knee shouldn't come up too much. You want to stay anchored through the hips, nice and stable, before we move into the other half of this pose. So get there, get grounded, notice what you're feeling, notice what's happening in your body without judgment. And when you do feel stable, we'll swing that left arm up and overhead, hover just above the right hand. So remember, you can also incorporate movement here by swinging that left arm forward, pretend like you are sliding your hand across a pane of glass or some invisible surface, noticing what you feel with each iteration, trying to find that deeper sensation, especially in the low back and the hips. Stretches like these can help reduce low back pain and also reduce a little bit of that spinal compression and start to break up that fascia that I always talk about. All right. And again, if you can't get to your forearm here and you're just up on your elbow, that's perfectly fine. Just whatever helps you connect with your body. Tightness might prevent you from getting all the way down here, and that's okay. That's why it's a practice. When you're ready to switch sides, do so mindfully, coming back up to center, finding that nice long spine before bringing the left palm to the mat. Left fingertips face away from the body as we start to slide that left hand away from the hips. So get grounded, get centered. You'll notice I have a lot of tightness in this right hip. I have a lot of issues here, so my right knee comes up a lot. Just remember that there are always asymmetries in the body, and that's okay. Your body is unique. We're not always going to look the same, and that's okay too. Anyway, when you're there, we'll bring that right arm all the way up and over, really pulling that right shoulder back, maybe even looking up toward the ceiling. Whatever helps you connect the most with that right low back and the hips. So you're really letting the sensations guide where you go in your flow. Remember, stay connected with the breath. Try to stay present in what you're feeling without getting distracted by your chitta vritti, mind chatter, or any thoughts that aren't serving you right now. And when you feel satisfied, we'll slowly, gently, mindfully, gracefully come back up to sitting. Find that long spine, nice posture here. We're going to come into a cobbler's pose, just bringing the feet together. And then from here, I always like to wrap my hands around my toes just because it feels nice and it's an opportunity to connect with the feet. But you can use your hands or the sensations of your body to help you decide how close or far away you want your heels from your hips. So bringing them in closer might be more intense. Moving them further away from the body might be more intense. Wherever you land, you can put your hands on your feet like I am. Just make sure that you're not using your hands to pull yourself forward into this bend. So if you want to rest your hands on your feet, that's fine. You can also rest them on the ankles or even open them up a bit. But ultimately, we are going to find that nice long posture through the spine again and then just curl inward, however it's comfortable for you. Maybe shake out your hair, relax the head and neck, Warm up your toes, whatever you do, you do. Just taking a second here to turn inward again. Enjoy this nice stretch. Enjoy a little relief in the low back. Remember, take your time in any pose that feels great. What I'm modeling is just a suggestion, so feel free to explore your body, make it your own. Close your eyes if it feels good. Take breaks when you need to, but always try just to come back to the breath. Stay present with the breath. And then when you're ready, plant those sits bones again. We're going to curl slowly up, articulating through the vertebra, noticing what you feel, finding that tall posture once again. And then we're going to do like a seated reclined pigeon here, or seated pigeon, I guess. So you're going to bring both feet out in front. Soles of the feet are just on the mat or on the floor. I'll turn to the side to show you. We're going to let the hands sit back behind us, kind of like you're a kid in school. You're just relaxing. Weight is in the palms. Make sure you're symmetrical, centered, grounded here. Slide the heels a little bit further away to start. And we're going to cross the left ankle over the right knee. And then maybe slide that right heel in a little closer toward the hips to give you the degree of sensation that you're looking for. So you can put your planted foot wherever you need to on the mat to feel that connection with the left hip without it being too overwhelming. So once you find your good right foot placement, you can use your hand to adjust that left ankle if you need to. We're just going to start to press that left knee open away from the face, just exploring in that left hip a little bit. And then maybe even just rocking a little bit left to right. You might notice a lot of sensation in that left hip if you do this. You might notice nothing at all. So feel free to explore, either pressing that knee away or maybe just rocking gently side to side. So this is all we're going to do here in this pose to start with. We'll get deeper into the hips later, so find what you need here to kind of get started, introduce those sensations. And when you feel good about it, we'll switch sides. You can unravel by sliding that right foot away from you to start, and then easily lifting the left foot off the right. Same thing on the other side. We'll bring that right foot and ankle to the top of the left knee. You can adjust with your hand if you need to. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable for the bones of my ankle on top of my thigh, so feel free to adjust however you need to, and then slide that left foot as close as you need it. Maybe rocking left to right, maybe just pressing that right knee open. Noticing what you feel in the right hip. Noticing if one side is very different from the other. Sciatica tends to happen on one side of the body as opposed to both. So sometimes those asymmetries can lead to complications like sciatica. But that's not always the case. So just observe, learn about your body, explore those sensations, and connect with the breath. When you're ready, slide that left foot away from the hips, unravel. We're gonna come onto all fours for cat-cow, so however you get there, you get there. I like to cross at the ankles and then just roll forward onto all fours. Knees will be under the hips, palms under the shoulders. And we'll drop in with our cat-cow right away. So you know what to do. Inhale, drop the belly, curl the tailbone up, lift the gaze, pull the shoulders back. And exhale, press into the yoga mat, curl the low ribs inward, completely exhale, and sync up with your breath. Inhale, drop the belly, curl the tailbone up. And exhale, press into the palms, press into the tops of the feet. Move at your own pace here. Probably notice that we do this in almost every class together, and that is because there are so many benefits to cat-cow. That spinal articulation is super important, as is spinal health in general. We're doing this for sciatica so we can work through each vertebra, notice and pinpoint any challenges that we feel there, and to decompress the spine a little bit. So we're going to go further into that by incorporating that barrel move, just finding other organic movement through the spine. Feel free to bend into your elbows, pressing the torso to the left, downward, over to the right, and back up. Maybe reversing that circle, going in the opposite direction. Really just imagining the spine here and how it can move, and just helping it move in new ways. Feel free to explore here. Remember, you can also just stay with a neutral spine and tabletop. Send the hips back, draw a big circle with the hips. Really just exploring here, getting some movement in through the spine and the hips. And as you move, listen to the feedback that your body is giving you. So your body is always giving you valuable information, but you can only receive that information if you can be present in the sensations that you're experiencing. So really just observing openly everything that your body feels. Okay, when you feel satisfied, we'll come back to that neutral spine and tabletop, palms under the shoulders, knees under the hips. And we're gonna thread the needle here to add a little extra stretch to the outer hip. So what we'll do is start by raising that right palm up toward the ceiling, really opening through the chest. You might get a spinal twist here. Notice what you hear, what you feel. And then we're gonna bring that right hand underneath the left shoulder and extend it fully to the left, coming down onto that right shoulder, right ear. So once you're there, you can extend that left arm long to kind of ground yourself, use it to explore stretching through the upper back, and then we're really gonna press the hips over to the right. Make sure you're not pulling or sinking to the left too much. Keeping the hips square. And maybe just relaxing here. Listening to the breath. Again, you can gently roll side to side, see what you feel in the shoulder if you want to find the position that feels best in your body or feels most beneficial. And when you feel great about it, slide that left palm back under the shoulder to press up and out. Let's extend that right hand up toward the ceiling one more time. Get that nice spinal twist. Notice if your range has changed. And then bring that right palm back to the mat so we can do the same thing on the other side. So get centered here before lifting the left palm up toward the ceiling, opening up through the chest, maybe look up. And then bring that left hand underneath the right shoulder, all the way over to the right, coming down onto that left ear and left shoulder. Adjust your hands as needed, seeking out those sensations, noticing what you feel. Keeping the hips square, maybe by pressing the hips over to the left. They may have a natural tendency to fall to the right, but we really want to keep that integrity in the lower body. Take a few deep breaths here. Remember your mantra or what brought you here today. And when you feel ready, slide that right palm underneath the right shoulder to press up and out. Let's remember to lift that left hand back up toward the ceiling, just noticing if your range has changed at all. And then bringing that left palm back to the mat under the shoulders. So from here, we're going to go into a puppy pose. Knees are under the hips. We'll walk the hands forward and outward just a bit. And then we're going to bring the chest and forehead to the mat. So listen to your low back in this pose. If this feels really great for you, then just stay here in this passive version of the stretch. If this is painful or too much pressure on your low back, you can engage the lower abdominals, rolling up higher on the forehead and just pressing the armpits down toward the mat. So decide which is better for your body today, and we'll just spend a few cycles of breath there. I'll be quiet, you can turn inward. When you're ready to come out, do so gently and mindfully, bringing the palms under the shoulders to press up. And we're going to come into our first downward dog from here. So curling the toes under, pressing the hips up high and back. If you do have sciatic pain right now, don't try to extend through the knees fully. Just keep the knees bent today. And we'll start just by pedaling through the feet. Notice what you feel in the hamstrings. Tightness there can also exacerbate or lead to that sciatic pain. So hamstrings are going to be the backs of the thigh. That feels really tight as you pedal through the feet, then maybe that's something to pay attention to. And we will do a couple stretches for hamstrings later in this practice. All right, so finding what feels right, keeping a big bend in the knees if you need to, lifting that tailbone up toward the ceiling, nice flat back here. When you're ready, we're gonna lift the gaze to between the palms. We'll lift that right leg up really high and then bring it all the way up and through. Plant that right foot, frame it with both hands, and then we're gonna drop the back knee to the mat, uncurl the toes, and press up to your low lunge. So we've been here before in the low lunge. We'll start by pressing forward, giving the hip flexors some pressure here, just listening to your body. If it's intense, don't press forward too hard. Just nice and gentle, just kind of noticing. And then we're going to incorporate, we're going to do a twist and a side body stretch. So keeping that left hand on the thigh, drop the right arm to the right, raise it up toward the ceiling, and we're going to kind of bend up and over to the left. Just breathing deep, noticing what you feel. And then bringing that right arm back to the top of the thigh. From here, you can press up a little bit if you need to bring palms together at the heart. And we're going to try to twist the torso and bring this left knee to the top of the this left elbow to the top of the right knee in order to find that spinal twist. So bring palms together at the heart. We're going to turn the torso to face toward the right, connecting that left elbow with top of the right knee. And then just kind of pressing the palms together, trying to center the palms in the middle of the chest. So it's going to be a big twist through the spine. Breathing all the way into the hips. Remember, you're in control. And try not to let that right knee collapse inward. So nice and strong in the low body, connecting with the outer hip. Bring the gaze back to center, look down at your right foot, and then we'll gently unravel here. Send that right foot back. Curl the toes under. Find your downward dog, and we'll do the same thing on the second side. So take a moment in downward dog if you need to. Notice what you feel here. Catch your breath. Downward dog itself is also a great pose for sciatica because it decompresses the spine a bit. So if this feels great for you, take your time here. Otherwise, we're going to plant that right foot, lift the left leg up high, and do the same thing on the second side. Start by bringing that left foot all the way up and through, planting it in the middle of the hands, dropping that right knee to the mat, uncurling the right toes, and then pressing up to your low lunge. Take a moment here, sink into the hips, notice what you're feeling there. And then keeping that right hand on the top of the left thigh, we're going to drop the left hand, bring it all the way up, and bend over to the right. Remember your breath. Try to stay present. Bring that left hand back to the top of the left thigh. We're going to do that twist one more time, so if you need to come up a little higher first, that's okay. Bring palms together at the chest. Look down at that left knee. That's where you're going to try to hook your right elbow. So we're going to bring that right elbow there to start. Find that twist and then try to center your palms in the middle of your chest. So you're really leveraging that connection of the elbow to the knee to find a deeper spinal twist. Find your breath. Find your focus. Shift your gaze back down to that left foot. And we'll release everything to the mat, framing that left foot once again. We'll curl those back toes under, send that left foot back, and send the tailbone up toward the ceiling for your downward dog. Take a second, shake it out. Pedal through the feet if you need to. And when you're ready, we'll plant that left foot. Once again, lift that right leg up high. You can also bend into that right knee, drop that right heel toward the left shoulder to open up more through the hip. Or with that right leg lifted, once again, we'll bring it all the way up and through. planting it between the palms. This time we'll drop that left knee. And we're gonna come into a runner's stretch here. So we're gonna extend through the right knee, bringing the right toes up toward the ceiling. Your hands can stay where they are, framing that foot. If you need to bring them closer, that's fine. You can also put them a little further away if you have that in your range. So trying not to hyperextend that right knee, we're really pulling that right heel in toward the right hip. And you should feel a strong connection with the right hamstrings here. So without collapsing through the neck, feel free to close your eyes, turn inward if it feels good. Breathing deep into those hamstrings. Keeping those toes pointed up toward the ceiling or flexing toward the shin. And then when you're ready, lift the gaze. We'll bend into that right knee, come back to the sole of the right foot. We'll do the same thing on the second side. So lift that back knee, send that right foot back. Send the hips up for downward dog. Plant that right foot. We'll lift the left leg up high. Remember, you can open up through the hip by bending into that left knee, dropping that left heel toward the right shoulder. Or just stay in three-legged dog. Lift the gaze, bring that left foot all the way up and through. Drop that back knee. And once again, extend through that left knee, bringing the toes up toward the ceiling. Staying up on your fingertips, pulling that left heel in toward that left hip. If it's way too much intensity, just put a little bend in that left knee. Keep your toes flexed toward the shin though. And remember, you can explore by adjusting your hand placement, moving the fingertips a little further forward or closer toward the body, depending on what you need. Finding the breath, quieting the mind, remembering what brought you here or remembering your mantra. When you feel great about it, bend into that left knee, bring the sole of that left foot back to the mat, curl those right toes under, lift that right knee. Send that left foot back for plank. We'll take a little vinyasa here by lowering all the way to the belly for cobra or halfway, rolling forward for upward facing dog, and meeting again in downward dog. All right, this is your last set in downward dog. We're gonna go into our pigeon pose, which is really great for external rotation in the hip, strengthening that piriformis, and relieving sciatica. So this time, lift that right leg up high, lift your gaze to between the palms. We're gonna bend into that right knee and bring that right knee to somewhere behind the right wrist, right thumb. And then as you settle in, bringing the hips toward the mat, you can inch your left leg back if you need to. Let's take our time here in this seated position before we fold forward. Try to make sure you're not rolling or slouching over to the right. You feel nice and squared through the hips. If you are pregnant and practicing this, before you fold forward, you can either use a block or a pillow under this left hip to fold forward to support the belly. So if you don't need that support, that's fine. Take a moment with the long spine, shoulders back, chest open. Nice deep breaths before we walk the hands forward. Bring the forehead down toward the earth or maybe to a prop or maybe on top of stacked fists, whatever feels right for you. Really just focus on deepening the breath, breathing all the way into that right hip. Letting the body know it's okay to relax. Remember, you can adjust the degrees of intensity in this pose by bringing the heel closer to or further away from the hips. If you want more intensity, just open up that angle in the right knee. And for less intensity, bring that heel a little closer to the right thigh or to the hips. Honor wherever you are today. Take this time to turn inward. Practice gratitude for this vessel you've been given. Remember that you have the tools and the power to nurture and heal your body. So this pose is kind of our main event here. It's a very beneficial pose for a lot of reasons, but mostly it's really good for the hips and spine. So if you suffer from sciatica and the pain prevents you from getting into this pose now, that's okay. But it's a good pose to incorporate during regular practice to prevent issues like sciatica in the future. So let's take a few more cycles of deep breath here. Relax through the hips, through the glutes. Make sure you're not holding or tensing anywhere in the body. Relax through the skin of the face, relax the neck. When you're ready to come out, do so gently by bringing the palms to the mat, walking them up toward the torso, finding that nice tall spine once again. Really just pressing the hips down toward the mat here before we unravel. Getting that added benefit. And then when you're ready, we'll come back into a plank pose. We'll go through one more vinyasa. So slowly lower all the way to the belly to cobra, or lower halfway for chaturanga, followed by upward facing dog, whatever your preference. And then we'll meet again in downward dog to do the same thing on the second side. So take your time here. If you need to spend time in downward dog, just to think about what just happened, or catch your breath, or take a minute to decompress, that's fine. And then when you are ready, lift that left leg up high, three-legged dog, lift the gaze to between the palms, and then bend into that left knee. Plant it somewhere behind the left wrist, maybe walk that right leg out a little further, and then walk your hands in to find that nice long spine once again on the second side. Take your time here. Notice what tenses or what, where you're holding in the body here. Try to be proactive about allowing the other muscles to relax as we stretch through the hips. And when you're ready, just like the other side, walk the hands downward. Maybe you come onto stacked fist or stacked palms. Maybe you use a block or a pillow to support your forehead. All of those are fine. Just listen to your body. And then just remember, if you want more intensity here, you can try bringing that left heel away from the body, opening up through the left knee a little bit more. And if you need less intensity, just bring that left heel in closer toward the body. So find what feels best for you. Settle in. And I'll be quiet to allow you to do that. Take this time to quiet the mind, connect with the breath, and breathe all the way into that left hip. Let's take a few more cycles of breath. Stay present with the sensations that you're feeling. Really observe them. When you feel fulfilled, slowly open your eyes if they're closed. Bring your awareness back to the hands. And press into the palms to walk back up to a seated position. Find that nice long spine. Notice what you're feeling in the hips here, staying squared through the hips. And then we're going to bring that right leg just in front of us to come into a cross-legged seat. Or any seat really. We're transitioning to coming to the back. So you can bring your feet together in front of you. Come back to lying, however you want to. We are going to do one stretch with a block or a pillow. So just have that within arm's reach if you don't. And so what we're going to do with that block is first slowly bend the knees, bring the soles of the feet to the mat. And you're going to press into the heels to lift the hips. And you're going to put this block just under the hips, not the low back. Okay, so once you feel good and stable there, we'll extend the legs out long. Open up the palms toward the ceiling. And then you're just going to raise the palms up and overhead so you're in one long line from the fingertips to the toes. And just take a second to breathe. Notice what you feel in the hips and the low back. This is not a yoga pose, just a really great stretch for sciatica and in general. If this pose gives you relief, then that's great. Stay there as long as you need to. Otherwise, we're going to move into a bridge pose just by bringing the soles of the feet back to the mat. We will remove that block by lifting the hips. Bring the arms down toward your sides. Bring the heels as close to the hips as is comfortable for you. You should end up in about a 90-degree angle at the knees when we're extended, but you can adjust accordingly to suit your body. With the palms downward, we're going to press into the heels, gently lift the hips toward the ceiling. And then from here, we're going to open up the palms toward the ceiling and just inch the shoulder blades closer together. See if you can press the hips a little higher, press the chest up toward the ceiling, and then lift the chin just a little bit more. So you're really supporting, you may feel the muscles of the low back engaging. And then we'll slowly sink back down. Slow as you can, slow as you can. As soon as you feel your hips touch the mat, we'll extend upwards again. Again, inching those shoulder blades together to protect the neck. Lifting the chest, lifting the chin, noticing what you feel. And with your exhale, gently lowering back down to the mat. You can also try to do this for sciatica by first crossing the ankle over the knee and doing a single leg bridge. So same thing pretty much if you want to try this. You're extending through the bridge, make sure your shoulder blades are underneath you, and then you're just pressing that knee open at the same time. A lot of sensation here. If it's too much, that's okay. Just lower back down, maybe try it on the second side, and feel free to incorporate this on your own if it feels great. Make it part of your regular practice. Once again, you can see here my right knee is very raised, and that's because of the complications in my right hip. So if you have similar issues, don't be judgmental. Give yourself space and grace. All right, next we're going to bring the soles of the feet to the mat and then just tuck the knees in toward the chest. Nice compression, maybe rocking gently side to side. You can also, if you are practicing this during pregnancy, you can keep the knees wide to accommodate the belly. Just draw the knees down toward the armpits. You should still get a nice little massage on the low back, if nothing else. So if this feels great, spend as much time here as you want. Otherwise, we'll go through some other final stretches by releasing soles of the feet to the mat. We're going to do a variation of something we did earlier just by crossing that left ankle over the right knee. Maybe pressing into that knee, although you should be pretty warmed up at this point. So we can kick that right foot up off the mat, interlace the fingers behind the thigh, and extend that right knee for added hamstring stretch. If you want to support that knee and pull forward, you can do that. If your hamstrings are not tight and you want to get deeper into the hips, keep that right knee bent, interlace the fingers in front of the right shin, and again, pull that in closer toward the face. You can also rock gently left to right and notice what you feel in the hips when you do that. And you can also press that left elbow into the left thigh if it helps. When you're ready, release that right foot to the mat. We'll unravel and do the same thing on the other side. Crossing that right ankle over the left knee. Maybe extending through that left knee to stretch a little more through the hamstrings. Or maybe keeping that left knee bent for an emphasis on that right hip. Maybe rock gently side to side. Feel free to explore. Feel free to make it your own, because it is. And when you feel satisfied, release that left foot to the mat and unravel. All right, last but not least, we'll do our reclined twist. So we'll start by sending that left leg out long. Bring that right foot up off the mat so that right knee is bent to 90 degrees. We'll bring the left hand to the outside of the right knee, shift the hips to the right a little bit, and then guide that right knee across the body to stack the hips, maybe extending that right arm out to the right, or bending it at a 90-degree angle if it helps you stay anchored. You really want to keep the right shoulder toward the mat here if possible to get that full spinal twist. And if you want to get into the hamstrings here, remember you can also extend that right leg out long through the knee. You should feel this, or you may feel this. in the outer right hip especially. So wherever you are, remember to incorporate the breath. Remember not to hold, squeeze, or tense anything else. Just relaxing, including through the face. And then when you're ready, we'll switch sides by bending into that right knee, rolling back through center. Maybe sending that left arm out long this time. Maybe shifting the hips a little bit to the left. Extend that right leg out long. Left foot comes up, knee is 90 degrees. Right hand to the outside of left knee. And then just draw it across the body to stack the left hip on top of the right. Settle into the sensations that you're feeling here as we start to close the practice. Quiet the mind to a meditative state, or maybe just reflect on the work that you've done here today in nurturing your body. And quickly, before we come into Shavasana, I'll show you one more variation of these reclined twists. You can just do this with both legs at the same time if you want to, bringing both knees up to 90 degrees, really letting them fall down to the side, and then again, adjusting your torso so you can keep that right shoulder on the mat. If this feels great for you, feel free to incorporate it into your regular practice. Remember, if you do try this pose, it's important to also try it on the second side. Stacking the hips, pulling that left shoulder down toward the mat or toward the earth. You can also rest your right hand on your stacked knees to get deeper into that twist and low back stretch, if it feels good. All right, so we'll come into Shavasana when you're ready, or any final resting pose where you want to finish your practice. Sometimes I like to bring the soles of my feet together for cobblers or butterfly pose, just because our hips aren't in this position often, and it's as Americans, and it can feel good. So wherever you are, find your final resting pose. Close your eyes if it feels great. We'll take just these last couple minutes for some quiet meditation, and then I will close the practice. If it feels right and you want to join me, you can bring your palms together to rest gently at the third eye or forehead. Before we close, I always like to do a land acknowledgement to say thank you and pay respects to the Monongahela, Osage, and Erie peoples whose lands we currently occupy, or I currently occupy as I teach. So we honor those sacrifices. I'd also like to recognize that yoga is an ancient spiritual practice tied to the subcontinent of India, so we appreciate and do not appropriate yoga. But yoga is many things to many people, including a community. So I thank you so much for being part of my community today. I hope you got sciatica relief, and I hope to see you again soon. Namaste.